it's like if I tell you, you tell her,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
tell her, and then at the end.
Are we going to be able to hear
Yeah.
everybody or no? Do we need to?
Yeah.
Okay, because last time we couldn't figure out how to hear people.
Yeah, well, that we thought we'd get to the second part and we didn't.
And that's how I feel.
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. There's Ruth.
Right.
Ruth and Mike, hi, if you can hear us, can you unmute?
Not one.
We want to see if we can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Speaking.
Not yet.
I know.
We unmuted. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
I saw my dancing partner.
It's not.
Jill. Yeah, remember?
We unmuted,
Can you hear us?
Ed.
I guess not. No, we can't
I
hear
can't
him.
hear you.
Was it record? Why is it on record?
He's recording this. There's no sound.
No.
Oh, now there's
All right.
sound.
Now you hear us?
Now we hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear
Okay,
us?
good. All right, that's good.
Can you hear us?
It
It's not.
is coming, I think.
Yeah, I just got a
I
notification
did.
from my.
I know, everything,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
This club is here.
Nobody is
Oh.
showing in, another
Good.
storm.
Good, good.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, David. You too.
What's open?
I have a different outfit today.
Hey,
David.
Hi,
All does that.
Hi.
hi
You
there.
know,
I'm your official cheering section. We're both this and we're pickleball.
Pickleball, right?
I'm trying to think about taking it up.
David.
Hi.
Speakers, no.
That's what happened last time.
Scott's here.
He's helping moving. He should set all this up. Oh,
Oh,
no,
Ed's
it's
sitting here.
there.
Oh, sorry.
Ed, you sitting here?
I think I'm here because the camera's here, so
Oh,
we'll
okay.
do it this way.
Wherever you like to sit, I'm okay with.
I've never been at this.
But if we don't have it, then we have to do it.
Oh,
Somebody
we
calls
did
in,
last
we'll use
week.
the phone.
I
for
know,
it.
we were here last time. It's
Do
So much
the tea and cookies tonight?
It was so much.
I don't know, do we have it?
No.
No, maybe not tonight. No.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go tell
Amy,
Robert?
how are
Ask
you?
Robert to
I'm
hear
well.
us?
How are you?
What?
Do you want me to ask Robert? Last time he
The
brought
one,
in
the martini
cookies
though,
and,
maybe too good.
Tea.
I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's too
Was
good.
dinner good?
Yeah, the burger, it was good.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
the
good.
burgers here are good. I mean,
Yeah.
everything, no complaints on the food
It
at
was
all.
actually too big.
Was it a real meat burger or the kind that's beyond? It was real.
How was
Yeah.
that?
Real meat.
Beyond.
How
I
are
never
you,
had it
David?
Oh,
here.
yes, you have.
No.
I had a full day.
You're-
Today was like a crazy full day.
Do you have a story you want to tell? Yeah.
No, today I went to stretch class,
There we go.
Thomas Friedman and FAU.
Thomas Friedman was there today?
Yeah,
Oh,
except we were in the third out parcel. We were in the third out parcel, not the second out parcel.
You weren't a VIP? No.
We could have went at 11 o'clock to chat, to meet with him. He spoke at 12. And it was interesting seeing, and the guy who did the discussion interview, really good. He's, I forget where he teaches, but he was really extraordinary as well.
Good night.
Ah,
Another day in Florida.
Another day of camp. in
Yeah,
Florida.
Camp Florida.
You
right.
got it.
Camp
Camp
Right.
Eastpointe,
Camp
that's it.
Eastpointe,
No,
right.
this was Camp Eastpointe. This was Camp Eastpointe to the fullest.
It is.
And we went to Sprouts to shop in between.
Oh, really? Did you have a nap time in
No
between?
nap time. Barbara forced me to have a shower. Get in there.
Yeah, I'm in the shower. Right? Thank me for that.
You're allowed to sit at the table.
Yeah.
Where's your volume control in this?
Hi, David.
Hello.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. Higher?
Their house.
Yes.
Nowhere to move.
There's lots of room.
Yeah, he was in jail.
Here, look down.
He borrowed money for his business.
Oh, right.
His partner's.
So do I use the mouse for that?
Yeah. The guy wouldn't,
You want a hamburger?
I don't remember the details.
It's so short though.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
How do I,
How do you what?
How do you look?
No.
Yeah.
But I don't see anybody who's in the where's the waiting room?
We should get a notice that, up top.
I know.
And then I would just use this.
Rebecca, what did they give you too much of?
We're not, we don't have a card, so we're good.
We split it.
But nobody heard us when we asked it. Yeah.
I'm gonna share it with myself tomorrow.
Oh, I met Jeremiah.
There's gotta be more story.
I think we're okay now.
Take your phone.
Yep.
Oh,
Let's test everybody.
Just get the woman of the year. She's giving him the black.
Have you on parking?
She's the advocate.
Scott, thank you very much for helping.
Oh, no problem.
yes,
Thank
thanks,
you very
Scott.
much, Scott.
Board of
They're doing
Governors
better
is
than ever.
talking?
Yeah, that's the,
That's the Zoom account.
that's the account.
Okay.
Like a black hole.
That's what I was on the.
Usually there's like.
So, is this mute?
I know.
No.
Just asking.
What is the mute over
What are you
here?
trying to do?
Them.
To mute everybody.
How do I
Everybody on
mute
the
them?
Zoom.
Is that what you want to do?
And
Well-
to start with, and then they unmute themselves when we call on them.
Well, they can mute themselves. It's easier for them to on and off themselves. than you to
Okay,
do it.
so just put that in your directions in the
Oh, this
beginning.
is nice now. It's like a double. screen.
Well, do they see us?
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
They're seeing us through the camera.
No, it's, these are
Yeah,
pulled on.
I don't see that for some reason now. That's
Nothing you can. That's very nice.
Okay.
Everything about it.
5
Oh,
after, I guess
right,
we should
that's
be
why
finishing.
you're here.
Yes.
And.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much. Okay. Just keep your eye on the top to see if anyone is coming. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming. So we're going to try to do it where we want to make sure we hear everybody. You're hearing us all right on the Zoom? Heads are nodding. Okay, one screen's frozen, but everybody's not. Okay, good. All right. So we're gonna.
Not clear enough.
Not clear enough? I don't
What do
know.
you mean? Can you hear?
You can't
clearly?
hear us clear enough?
No.
We can, if you speak loudly and clearly, we can hear you.
There.
Where is it you should go?
Yeah, I'll get, because the microphone's there, so I'll go closer. Okay, here we go. So thank you, everybody, for coming. And the way we're going to do it to try to make it so everyone can participate is we're going to ask people to raise their hands, both here and on Zoom. And you may have to wave a little to make sure we see it. And Ann's going to try to alert me to who, there we go, to who we'll have to call on to speak. So we're going to start with the discussion now of a hero. And I'm going to tell you also that our next movie is going to be March 24th. And this one's my pick. And I'm going to tell you the name of it, but it was just in the news last month without the movie actually being mentioned, but what a discussion came of it. It's the Battle of Algiers. And it's, if anyone here seen that already? Nobody saw it. Wow. Okay. It's one of the best 100 movies of all time. It's on a whole bunch of lists, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes from 90 reviews. Phenomenal movie. But not that many people are familiar with it. It's one of the most powerful movies I ever saw, and it's only got one actor in it. All the rest are not trained actors, but they were coached by the director. Documentary style, but I don't want to say too much, but it's on HBO Max, and it's going to be March 24th. And it was just in the news because, oh shoot, we don't have the view now, but hopefully you could see the article a little. This was a month ago, less than a month ago.
Can they see that?
In the New York Times. about France and Algeria. Yeah, if everyone can mute their phones.
Oh, wait, it's Debbie. She wants to get in on.
Okay. And it's,
Okay.
Where's Elizabeth?
yeah. President Macron of France recognizes the tragic page of France's past in Algeria as the elections are looming. That brings to mind this movie, which I'm encouraging everyone to watch because it's amazing movie.
And did you not choose this power?
No, A Hero was the voted on.
Oh, really?
This was the vote winner. Yep, I'm choosing that one, and then next month after we'll do it this way. Okay, and Elizabeth's calling, so I don't know if she's having a hard time getting
Oh,
this.
see?
You can answer to you.
Yeah.
You should be there. I know my customers.
Hi, Elizabeth. We're on the call. Did you,
no link.
did you, if you go and look at the Eastpointe flip book, page 6 or something, the link's right on. You just click on it, you'll be right on.
I can't work that link thing.
Well, that's in Saturday night. Let's do some-
I don't even know where it is. But so you don't have a link on what you said.
I mentioned what it is. It's in there. Yeah, I don't know if it's a direct link, but you can go to Zoom and you can enter
Debbie
it.
Hoffman can't get in either.
I don't have anything.
All right.
Let's send that to
Come
them.
to the
Okay,
front.
David's gonna send it. David Peltz will send it to you and,
I don't know where it is for me to send it to
Okay.
Debbie.
all right, I'm gonna go because we're on the call, but David will send it to you. Okay, okay. And,
How do I find it? Send it to Debbie.
yeah, so ask David to give you the info.
This week at Eastpointe, okay.
Yeah.
Football.
All right, so, A Hero was made by Asghar, where did I have it right here? Asghar, I didn't want to say it wrong. Asghar Farhadi, he's 49 years old. He's won 2 Oscars for Best International Feature Film, one for A Separation, which was a 2011 movie, one in 2012, and The Salesman in 2017. Both of those have extremely high ratings and they're on Amazon Prime. A Separation has a 99 on Rotten Tomatoes and The Salesman a 96. I did not see The Salesman. Did anyone see The Salesman? Okay, I did see A Separation. Anyone see that one? So no, it's
Yeah.
okay.
We might-
And you notice some similar, the way the story develops is kind of similar. Something keeps getting deeper and deeper and harder to resolve, harder to resolve. That's kind of his trademark. I actually got told about A Separation. I'm going to drop a name here because years ago I did a project with the actor Keir DeLay from 2001, and very, very nice man. He lived in the town next to us in Connecticut, and I saw him a couple of years later, actually at a film screening. He remembered me, of course, and I asked him what he liked now, and he said, "See A Separation, phenomenal movie from Iran." And sure enough, it won the Oscar. So he's the one who told me about it. Okay. Oh, Debbie's in.
Oh, Debbie got in?
Okay. So this needs to be
All right.
sent to.
Now, for this movie, A Hero, I just want to see real quick, show of hands, who liked the movie? Yes?
Okay, here's a half.
Half hand, okay. Half hand?
I'll do a quarter.
Quarter, okay, and on the screen, more on the screen liked it, okay, all right, good. Most of you on the screen, and about half here, okay.
Elaine and Harvey are going like this.
Yeah, okay, all right,
Mets,
so-so,
Mets.
50-50, okay, all right. And then, for those who didn't like the movie, anyone want to venture some comments as to why?
There's a lot of things I didn't understand. The woman who lost.
You got to
the
speak up,
coins,
so make sure they can hear you.
I didn't understand the woman who lost the coins, and I'm still confused about what was her story at the end. And did they ever explain why the brother-in-law was so angry?
They did, but I forgot why.
All right,
Something with, they were supposed to go into business together and.
Wait, who do you mean who was
The
angry?
brother-in-law.
The creditor?
He was the creditor.
Okay.
Was he the brother-in-law?
He was the brother-in-law.
Of the ex-wife, yeah. The
I
ex-wife.
looked at that again. I don't know if he was.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why.
I know, I watched it twice and it was still, some of the family relationships were a little
No, He was the
confusing.
brother-in-law. He was the ex-wife's brother.
Right. And the ex-wife, by the way, is never seen. You
Right,
realize that?
Yes.
Because the first time I saw it, I
She doesn't
thought
care about a kid at all.
the woman in the store was the ex-wife and it's his daughter. So, no, okay. And by the way, a little trivia note, that woman who was in the store, the daughter, is the director's daughter,
Oh, okay.
which I didn't realize, but until I was checking on it. Okay. So as far as your question about the woman, you didn't understand about the woman who actually lost the coins,
The one who said she lost the coin.
but she completely identified everything in the
Oh,
pocket.
she was a scammer. You think she was a scammer?
I think she was.
She was a scammer.
She's
Well,
sort
she
of-
was scamming, I think she was scamming being homeless and being poor. to
They
get
could
money
never
from the
find
government,
her
right?
address. They could
Right.
never
Right.
locate.
Well,
her.
she didn't want to be found because she said she was afraid if her husband found out, he'd take all the money and
Right.
spend it, and maybe he gambled or something. So she was protecting her identity on purpose
Do you
because she
think she
wanted.
was a real
protect-
person who lost the purse?
I do.
You really
Yeah.
I do.
They made
Yeah,
that
well, where did
questionable.
she get those?
It was
coins?
questionable.
She said she worked for them as a weaver. And she earned every one of them,
Okay.
like that was her payment one at a time over weeks. So she didn't want to lose her money. So that part I was okay with.
Someone
has
has
a
a
hand
question
up.
online.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Ruth. Unmute.
Was she, but she was the one who was trying to get her husband out of prison, isn't she?
No, different person. That was a little confused because she did look like him. But no,
Oh,
different person, different person.
so she
Yeah,
wasn't, okay,
No,
thank
yep, different, but that was a little, I thought, Ann and I thought that was the person too. At first we saw her, it's like, no, it's a different lady. The one whose husband was going to be hanged at the end, different lady. Okay,
What do
everyone
you
clear
mean?
on that?
No. Clarify
Okay,
that.
at the end of the movie, when he reluctantly agrees to have the money given over to prevent the guy from getting hanged,
Oh, right.
that woman,
Yeah. She was waiting in the waiting.
she was in the
room.
waiting room, right? right.
Oh, at that community council.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right,
Yes.
with her little girl.
With her child, right?
And this gentleman has his hand up.
Okay, yes, sir.
So you asked about whether we liked it and if we didn't like it, why. I sort of liked it. And the thing that I didn't like was that the characters were more confusing than I would have liked. What I liked so much about it was the thrust of the story and the cultural window that we had into what life was there.
Right.
Okay,
That's a good point.
and let's address that because that gets a little bit into the politics. Because it's an Iranian film, we know about the type of government they have. And yet this film not only got out, so here in America we could see it, but it's Iran's choice for Best International Feature. That was their official selection to put up there. So that brings up several questions as to the influence maybe the government had on the movie. Well, there was an interview, a couple interviews, which I read with Farhadi, the director. And I want to find another one though, because he addressed the influence factor and his feelings about the government. Now the question is, can I find it? Here it is, perfect, I got it, okay. The interviewer said, I want to ask about the statement you released in November on Instagram, that's this past November. You rejected the idea you are in debt to the Iranian government, which selected a hero as its Oscar entry in October of 2021. A month later, he published a statement distancing himself from the government. He ended his statement saying, quote, I have never had the slightest affinity with your backward thinking, nor do I have the slightest need for your support and praise.
And who is he addressing?
He's addressing Iran,
To the
the Iranian government, his government.
Oh, that's what
When he
it
lives
is.
there, he's not a Europe.
I don't know where he's currently living,
I can't imagine.
Yeah,
this.
but he,
That's
I mean, the
really
whole movie
powerful.
was made in Iran.
Yeah, but that's a powerful statement for somebody.
Yeah,
to make
there's
about
more.
the
Yep,
Iranian
there's more. He addresses it further.
Big time jail.
Or not debtor's jail.
A beheading.
Not dead in jail.
Okay. When I was making the film, I wasn't really thinking about what was going to happen in the future. That statement of mine, the people of Iran understand it more because the Iran situation is so complex, it's hard for a foreigner to understand it. They have to know what's going on, the complexity of Iran's situation to understand it. But if I want to summarize it, it's talking about the independence of the artist. That was his comment about it. He said, I hope and wish to make most of my movies in Iran, but nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Now, he was asked about the character of the taxi driver, because the taxi driver has a perspective that's considered anti-establishment and anti-prison. The taxi driver, and his answer was, the taxi driver is one of the most liked characters in the film by people around the world. He helps Rahim without deriving any benefit from it, the same way that Farhadi does, which is his fiancee girlfriend. And he said there's a quality that they have a word for. He says, I'm not sure how Asghar would be translated, but there's a translator there and he says sacrifice. So he sort of sacrifices himself for something else. It's very selfless. The taxi drivers actually, and the director said, his character is very different from Rahim. Rahim has covered himself, hidden his intentions and motivations behind a veil, but the taxi driver, he's more honest. His hand is shown. Kind of interesting comments. He said, now I want to talk about the final scene. This is what the interviewer said. He said, the film has a very finite end point. Rahim goes back to prison. Can you talk about designing that scene? In the background, a man is released, and in the foreground, we see the prison guard going about his job. How did you decide to end the film this way, and how did you compose that final shot? And his answer was, I always thought about the last scene in the film because Rahim is a painter. What would he paint if he wants to paint a picture on the wall of the prison? I thought he was going to paint a door that is open to the outside, and there is a couple that is walking outside. And this came from the idea that he's actually seeing the picture, the painting that he wanted to paint. He's seeing it outside. And in the last scene, there are two things happening at the same time. The story of Rahim, that he goes back inside the prison, which is a dark story, and the story of this old man who is walking out of prison and the bus that Rahim didn't get at the very beginning of the film. He gets on the bus and leaves. The difference between the ending and my other film's endings is that although it's sad, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There is some kind of hope in it. And the interviewer says, for that man, his life has started again. And he says, yes. So that's his version of optimism for the film, I guess.
And you know the amount he owed? I read something.
Yes, I checked that.
A ridiculous amount.
Very small by what we would consider to be put in prison for a long period of time. It was, the actual amount owed was about $3,500.
$3,500. I read someone it was $35.
No, it was $3,500. And the coins that were found were almost exactly half. The value of the 17 coins was about $1,750. So that also brings up several issues. Now, the critics, again, gave this a 96 on Rotten Tomatoes from 154 critics. The audience score was very good, but not as good as that. It was an 80%. I think here we're probably around 70 based on what I saw, 65 or 70, but that's okay. So the critics' consensus was, a hero finds writer-director Asghar Farhadi once again grappling with weighty themes, with the audience emerging as the winner. The audience kind of consensus, according to Rotten Tomatoes, a hero really challenges the viewer with moral ambiguity. The movie can be an exhausting one with countless situations that feel tense and without any clear resolution. I really liked how this film tackled people's perceptions of right and wrong. Okay, it did win the Cannes Grand Prize and Broadcast Film Critics Best Foreign Feature, Golden Globe nominee for Best Non-English Film, and National Board of Review. It won Best Original Screenplay. Many more festivals and Critics Association wins as well. Now, I had some notes I had from watching it. There's a lot of foreshadowing incidents. As soon as Rahim gets out of prison for his 2-day leave, he misses the bus. Remember that? He totally missed them, just barely. Then he has to, and I noted, like Sisyphus, climb all those stairs on the tomb of Xerxes to get to the top. And then as soon as he gets to the top, he goes right back down. Now, I looked up a little about Xerxes because that's the tomb. It's a 2,500-year-old tomb. And Xerxes was assassinated in 465 BCE by one of his ministers. So I thought that established that the tone of revenge is foreshadowed there, maybe. I mentioned about the value because you just asked about it. So you remember when the woman who got the purse and she gives the bill to the child, Rahim's son. It was a 50,000.
Right.
Yeah, right. Bill, which the value is about a little over $1, about $1.19. Okay. So they found a $1,700 equivalent in the purse, and she gives him $1. So questions: why did Rahim give the prison phone number? Anyone have thoughts on that? Because he answers it, but you don't know if what he's saying is the truth. Anyone have thoughts on why he gave out the prison's number for when he put the signs up for people to call and say they found it was their purse?
Do you think he was knowledgeable around getting call it pity or recognition for doing the good deed? Do you think that was in his brain?
Okay, so yes and no. I think it was, but the director said he intentionally left a lot of things ambiguous. This happened to be one of them, I think, because he said he wanted to tell the woman that the purse was found. He wanted to be the one to tell her. Okay, but yeah, by giving out that number, it was obvious that all the people that run the prison were going to also be aware of what happened. So you don't know if his motives, what his motives really were. Okay, so now it made the prison warden, Mr. Tahiri, know, and his own agenda was to get better PR after they said another prisoner committed suicide in the prison. Now, the other theme that was kind of important to the movie, and the director mentioned this in another interview, public opinion. The importance of public opinion is a big theme, and the way it swings with videos. So first, he's on the news, he's a hero. And then the woman from the store releases the video, and he's a bad person. He's got all the negative publicity. So another question I noted, why did he owe the money? So it was a little, they kind of glossed over that a little, which is one of my slight criticisms of the movie. But he said his sign painting business failed because the technology that made printing signs easier and less expensive kind of put him out of business, made him too expensive. So
his partner took the money.
that's the other thing. That's what I heard too, right?
Yeah,
Kept saying,
missing the bus is a plug for his failures in life. And
Right.
he makes a lot of, he judges people incorrectly. He
Right.
makes
Right.
tactile,
Yeah,
typical.
exactly.
And he makes a lot of mistakes with choices.
But note the interesting thing. He had a sign painting business, and the guy he owes the money to, his brother-in-law, is a printer,
Right.
right?
Right.
He's the kind of guy that was putting him out of business, his brother-in-law.
Right.
So there's some, and that gets to in the Iranian culture about how family is tied to business constantly, and that was a theme in the movie as well.
Well, the women in Iran are powerful. The smart, well-educated, good-looking women.
Like here.
Huh? Like here.
Like
Let's not forget. And you see that in different parts of the movie. Look at this one.
Yeah, like the daughter of the guy that
The
had the printing
daughter,
business.
the
She was
girlfriend,
like Italian.
except for
Right.
the wife. The wife,
I bet the girlfriend, she was willing to.
No, the
she was
daughter.
willing to say
She was
it
very
her.
devoted and loyal.
No, that was the daughter of the guy who owned the printing business. It was her
The most
father,
powerful
and
man.
Yes.
the daughter was the one that.
The daughter was the one who outed him
Right.
with the video and everything, right?
I found the villain was the human resource manager. He was a mean bastard.
Well, let's talk about that. 'Cause
They
that-
are.
At first, because I went back and forth with him on that, and that's kind of what I thought. And the second time I watched it,
the guy who was digging into it.
no, at the
Oh,
that was
yeah.
going to hire him, where he was going to get the job, and he didn't give him the job because he had to check the story out.
Yeah, he was a villain.
Right.
But he had legitimate questions that were never
Yeah,
It was
answered
a setup.
because he was saying when he found it, but he got the text that was timed a week earlier because that's when his girlfriend found the purse.
That's right.
So,
But he had those legitimate those legitimate questions because he dug deeply into what the truth was, rather than accept the woman who was in charge of this well-known charity saying, this is a good man, hire him. Why didn't he just say, okay, you know what? Got a good reference, seems like a good guy, comes in with a clean shaven or not clean shaven, fire him,
You're absolutely right.
Yep. And but he wasn't fully honest, and every lie he got caught in
Right.
at
And
some
he
point or another.
Just kept build like a more tangled web of
Right,
lies.
right.
But he did try to tell the truth.
Yes.
Didn't he tell that original guy, well, my girlfriend found it. I
Yep,
didn't
he told
find
at the
it."
prison. He told the prison
And the
warden. Yep.
prison guy said, doesn't matter, just
Say you found it, yeah.
say you
And then
found
he
it."
not only says he found it, he shows him the spot where he found it,
Yes.
where he didn't find it.
Yes, so in a way,
So-
he was misled.
Right.
And like you had said, made poor choices to
Right,
believe them.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
He's trying to be
in the-
good.
in the spot where he brought his girlfriend to lie for him,
Yeah.
I had to leave the room. I was so upset. I was like so upset.
Really?
It threw me
When
big
he
time.
brought the girlfriend to admit that to say it was her.
I just.
Yeah, that
In
was.
front of his son.
Yeah,
He's doing the
I thought-
lie in
No,
front
that
of his
was
son.
right.
That's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah,
Right.
that was
So
awful.
I was
Missed the bus.
so
Right.
So Ed,
yes.
If there's a point made in the room and there's a lot of noise going on, we can't hear the point that was made. Could you repeat those things? Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Well, we'll try to be better about that, but thank you for the reminder. Okay. Confusing. Okay. Bahram, the creditor, was almost ready to agree to the terms negotiated by Rahim's brother-in-law for the sake of his son, Siavish. But the man you were just talking about, Nadi Ali, who was the man checking the references at the job and making sure everything checked out, which it didn't, heard, quote, rumors, unquote, Rahim made up the story. So were the rumors from the ex-wife or from Bahram's daughter? It seemed like initially the ex-wife, but the more it seems later, it seemed like it was from the daughter, since she's the one who released the video, and it was very clear she hated him. And she finally said why, if you remember why she said she hated him, because of what it did to her father. She saw the effect that this debt had on the father. And then the charity was very, very concerned about their reputation. They got some criticism for that, both in the movie and also in some articles I was reading, but to a certain extent with good reason, because their credibility would be shot, and that's an issue. So they took the money back to prevent a man from being hanged. And then so their charity was humiliated, the prison was humiliated. And then now the cab driver, he tried to help, but he ended up making things worse by telling him to bring the woman, bring another woman to pretend if you can't find the real woman. And then at the end, Rahim almost attacked him to get him to delete the video with it showed his son stuttering and just trying to basically.
That showed him as a hero. That made him a hero.
So that showed he actually he had the self-respect. He didn't want to go that far. He wouldn't cross.
I think that's what made him a hero.
So they're saying that's what made him a hero.
Yeah.
Okay. So he stuck up for his son's dignity. Okay. Okay, now at the end, he shaves his head. To me, that shows he accepted his fate and he was ready to go forward. And we talked about, what he sees is he's ready to go in. And just to add another layer to it, the man who is leaving gets a box of sweets to give to the prisoners and hands him the box. So he's the one going out, and then Rahim is the one going back in with a little box of sweets, which is like a consolate, the booby prize kind of thing. So now in an interview with Farhadi, he said he really doesn't believe in heroes. I want to get to the meat on that part. Okay, so here's the question to him. In a 2014 interview, you described information in your script as being, quote, covered in dust. It's up to the characters to keep wiping the dust away, like archaeologists who continue to discover new things. What did that approach do for this film? And his answer: in a hero, the information is spread throughout the film in a way that creates ambiguity. This ambiguity is not something that forced, but the story on its own, in its nature, has it. And this is something that got in my personal life as well. It seems like nothing in life is clear. Everything is ambiguous. The closest thing to us is ourselves. Oh, I don't need to read that. Okay. At the beginning, we feel like we know Rahim. All the decisions that he makes are, or other people make for him, are clear. But then as the story unfolds, we find that all his decisions were actually ambiguous. And then he asked, how do you think Rahim views himself? And he says, it's a very important question. I think the image he has of himself at the beginning is the image that others gave to him. We can see from the things that are happening around him, he believes nobody has respected him. Even his sister, when she sees the bag with the money, she says something disrespectful. She implies he stole it. And everything he tries in the film is somehow an attempt to compromise all the humiliation that he's felt in his life. The image that Rahim has of himself is not one he created. It's a voyage between Rahim to Rahim, the beginning and the end. The person is not the same person at the end. And then he says he feels it. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Just one line I remember, which I think is reflective of what you were just talking about, where the jailer said something about whether you're smart or stupid. And he says, if I were smart, I wouldn't have ended up in here.
That's right. The smartest
So
thing
it
he said.
reinforces, I guess I'm not smart.
Right.
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 Well, he keeps taking the advice of people, instead of, staying with his own convictions.
Yeah, Amy's saying he kept taking the advice of other people instead of sticking with his
And
convictions.
so he didn't have a lot of backbone.
Right. He'd have a lot of backbone till the end
Right.
when he insisted on deleting the video.
Right, but up until that point,
Right.
he was just getting whipsawed by everybody else's opinion of what
Right.
he should be doing.
Right. Everyone else's opinion he was taking. Right.
You know, he's a special guy. He got that woman to be his fiance. That's amazing from the context that he was on. She's a real woman.
Yep.
And, had a profession and
Yep.
stuff, and she was tough, and they fell in love.
Right.
That's a unique thing from the prison, from being in prison.
Right. And it's interesting because the director was asked about rehearsing the actors for this. And he said he spent a lot of time on how the actors rehearsed. He didn't spend as much time going over the script in traditional rehearsal. He said he sat down with each actor and went over their backstory for their characters.
Oh, interesting.
But with the lead actor, I gotta look up his name. Jabibi, I think his name is. Yep, Amir Jadidi, who played Rahim. He went over with him the physicality of his existence because he's a handsome man, but he said even when he smiles, it's to hide sadness. And he purposely had him kind of have his posture slouched, like the weight of his burden and his financial obligations were curving his spine essentially.
He was like a schlemiel.
Yeah, he was like a schlemiel. That's what he said.
Well, that's how I saw him, like a nebbish.
Yeah.
Except for this relationship. And then the son, like I thought, how does he have this relationship? And this woman is really stand up beside him. And then how he treated his son at the end was powerful, like both.
Right. Deb, you have a point? Your question? Got to unmute, Deb.
Unmuted.
Okay.
I just was wondering if the creditor would have listened to just the taxi driver coming in and saying, couldn't find the woman, he couldn't find her, but I'm an independent taxi driver. I've never met this man before. I drove this woman to the house. She came out with the bag. And I wonder if the truth wouldn't have prevailed. And I agree with you about the creditor, but I'm wondering if he really would have been smart. He wasn't a logical man. That's why, as Amy was saying, he just listened to anybody and did whatever. That was his downfall. Because
I think it was out of desperation because of his predicament. I'm
Exactly.
attributing it to that, but yeah. Okay.
I knew he was going to get caught. I knew it. I could predict what was going to happen. It was predictable that way.
Right. So the director said that there's moments where he shows the honest image of himself, like when he showed his anger and he shows who he is. But in the other parts of the film, it seems he covers his anger with a smile. Whenever he gets angry, with the exception at the end of the film, he always censors it. This is something that comes from our culture, probably. He is a character for whom the collective ideas of who he is are more important than his own individual idea. Again, the opinion of others is important. And his word that we call abero, or reputation, is very important in the everyday lives of Iranians. There is a saying in Iran, it is in our culture, and maybe it doesn't exist in another culture, and it says that a person makes his face rosy by slapping himself. There's a lot of meaning behind this. It means that you have to azar, annoy yourself, hurt yourself, in order to make other people feel like you're doing well. Okay, and I just mentioned about the physicality, which is right there. Yeah, right? Right, that's kind of unusual.
It's Iran. What do you want?
And then he talked about his the actor's stance always being crooked. He carries the literal debt of what he owes on his family, and there's an imbalance. He said the incident made him the way he is right now. Every physical characteristic of Rahim, we made the opposite of Bahram, the creditor. He's very strong. He always stays stable. His body's very sturdy, and he always makes decisions himself. And then he talked about how he had to coach the director, how he had to coach his daughter for that role of the shopkeeper's daughter, the brother-in-law who was the creditor. He said, I was telling her, Serena, this is a character who, when people see her, they are going to hate her because she does something to Rahim that we don't like. And acting as a character that the audience has those feelings toward is very hard. So the interviewer said, no one in the film really seems like a hero, which is the irony of the title. Is it even possible to be a hero in this day? Which I thought was a good question for the director. And he says, I think the idea of a hero that makes all the correct decisions for a long period of time, this is like a fantasy. It doesn't happen in real life. Maybe in different periods of our lives, we need a hero, but we also need to understand that this is a made-up idea. This is not the real thing. Maybe in a family, I can understand that one member becomes a hero of that family. But for a whole society, I don't really understand how one person can become a hero for everyone. Maybe for a small period of time, but for 10 years, 20 years, it's not going to happen unless that person dies. That was his answer. I thought that was kind of significant too. Anyone else have any questions or points you want to? Yes, Fred.
From a previous, I don't know if you guys can hear me, from a previous course, we learned that Iran has strict censorship. And that for a film like this to get through the Iranian censors, they have to give something, and they have hidden messages for the world. And so I noticed a few things. Number one, Iran is a police state. It's a dictatorship. There wasn't, I didn't see one policeman. I didn't see one military person. The sense I got from watching Iranian culture is it's very organized. There had to be a judge in a trial to get this guy in jail to pay a debt. It made Iran look good to me in a way. And I think that's probably the chip that this author had to do to the director to get this film across. And there are probably others.
There's probably others
in there.
Well, just the fact that they allowed him out of jail to straighten out his debt. I mean, who does that? Who does that?
And it came across as benevolent.
I mean, we don't do
The
that.
Iranian government
Well,
came
but
across as
it's also, it's a debtor's prison, which apparently is different from the murder type prisons, the felony prisons.
Right.
So, it's a little more lenient. I mean, they kind of made, and he was criticized that they made the prison look too cozy, too cushy.
Because that's a real prison, I read. I mean, that is a real
Right,
prison.
right, it
It's
was.
not that cushy. And
No.
cozy.
Well, he was an ideal prisoner. He
Right,
painted all the stuff.
that's right, he helped,
Right.
yeah,
But even the fact.
louder.
Oh.
Sorry. All right.
Oh, no,
Okay.
even the fact that they have this community council that will hear the.
Well, it's a
you know,
charitable
a
foundation.
charitable foundation that's allowed in Iran, like there's a charitable foundation that can step in and get somebody who's like about to be hanged
Right.
out, that's.
Well, it's a poor country, so this is their way of getting more money,
I guess.
being practical,
Yeah.
Is it a poor country?
Well, not at the very top, it's not, but in general, yeah, it
Or
is.
is it like really a poor country? Is it considered a poor country? Is the oil dollars,
right.
does it pass through the system somehow? Has anybody been to Iran? They keep people.
Yeah, it's like one-way tickets.
David's wondering if anyone's been to Iran to see if it's really a poor
And
country.
it's getting not out.
Okay, hold on, we have a point from Mike and Ruth.
How does anybody get out of debtor's prison?
Yeah, that's a question.
If you're in prison, how are you going to get out?
Right, if his family would pay the money, or which he was trying to do, that would be how you get out.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise you're there.
Does anybody remember why the man was going to be hung?
Murder.
So
I believe that was
They
murder.
were going to get him out for
if you
murder?
had paid
Well, they were
that
going to prevent him from
for
being
murder.
hanged, not released, prevent him from being hanged.
He would still be in prison.
He would still be in
He would
prison.
not-
Yeah,
I see.
Get off death row.
right.
Right.
But I think they have to come up with the money because then they still have to feed and care for the prisoner if he's going to be alive. So I'm guessing that has
They
something to
have
do
to
with it.
do that?
What about the son?
This gentleman has a.
Yes, sir.
So there was a line when he was in prison from another prisoner who looked a little threatening and said something like, "You're not fooling anybody." And I never made the connection with that, what that was about. How did he know what?
Okay, good point. His assertion, which he implied and didn't overly state, was that Rahim was sucking up to the prison to try to get a more lenient position because he's helping the prison make look good by being the hero who's the model prisoner. because the prison had the issue with the 2 people who hanged themselves. So the prison was looking bad because they're having their prisoners hang themselves and they needed some good PR. So the prison was using Raheem as the good PR. Look, we got a model prisoner here. Yeah, forget about the guy that hanged himself. Look, here's our model prisoner we're putting forth for the public to see.
Raheem thought this prisoner sent the email.
Raheem thought the prisoner was the one who sabotaged him, but no, it was definitely the daughter of the shopkeeper, his creditor. Yes.
Well, I didn't think the society looked that great. I thought it was very claustrophobic. I thought no matter what you did, there was somebody out to get you, whether it's the HR profession or it's your neighbor, or everybody's telling on everybody else. I didn't think it was a very, I mean, I didn't feel free in that society. I felt very paranoid, and I could see how people would be paranoid. So I think if any message came out that wasn't censored, it was that that's what Iran is like. And you can't escape. I mean, no matter how hard you try, you're going to end up back in Iran.
Okay, you hear that? Okay, good. All right, good. Good projecting. Okay. So now the idea for the film, he was asked about that. And he said it had been there was an interview with the Hollywood Reporter a month ago. And he said it had been percolating in his mind for years, since as a student, he'd seen the Bertolt Brecht play Life of Galileo. I'm not familiar with that. Anyone is? Okay. He said, which in 2 lines ponders the definition of what a hero can be. At that time, the question floating through his mind was, why are most of our heroes dead? And when people pass away, they transfer to be a hero. And I understood, because when they pass away, when they're dead, they're very far from us. As an audience member watching his own film, the central query shifts in focus. I say, do we need any hero? And is it a real thing, or is it a fantasy? Because sometimes I think of hero as a model which encourages us to follow, and it's not realistic. Okay, he says the process of writing is very joyful for him. He says, I'm alone there. Nobody can say anything to me. I'm alone in my office. The most difficult part, the worst period, is when I finish the film and I watch the film for the first time on the screen. I'm thinking about the technical things, about the sound, the color, about everything. And the hardest period is promotion, when you should explain your film, which is very hard. So that was it. And here's a picture of the director. You can see it. Yeah. So, and that's when he talked about, he was so upset with the government. He said the government should withdraw the film from Oscar consideration if the government is using such a selection to claim the director as one of its own.
What do you mean?
He was upset because people were criticizing him for kind of sucking up to the government by making a film that showed Iran in a positive light. So he had some criticism. So
But you said something after that. You said how Iran is using him as one of the, or he thinks Iran is
as one of their own,
yeah,
meaning the administration, the government administration, not the country.
He's against the
leaders.
government, right?
He's against the leaders.
Right. He doesn't want to be used as a pawn.
Exactly, right.
How
So
did
he,
it make Iran look good?
Well, the women look okay.
yeah, you don't see the military walking all over, censoring everybody. You don't see any of that. Look like a free society, right?
they're moving around. They're moving around.
Moving around freely. No
You didn't see the
military.
Ayatollah.
Yeah, you don't see
Right.
the
They had
Ayatollah.
great rugs on the
You
floor.
don't see.
Right.
Persian rugs.
There were no like propaganda signs,
No.
big,
Right.
pictures, murals of the Ayatollah.
Right.
The women seem like too educated or too
But in
smart.
all his movies.
So who is this guy? He's got lots of good stuff to say.
Harvey.
Have you seen him before?
No,
Harvey?
No, Harvey.
He's an HR guy.
We should introduce
Greenberg.
you.
Harvey, the
Greenberg.
HR guy.
Oh, they're our neighbors.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I was an HR guy.
So with that.
And I was just as mean a bastard as he was.
So let me talk about mean, because Bahram, do you consider him a bad guy? Was he wrong? The creditor.
Well, he has that quote about doing the right thing. You get rewarded for doing the right thing. Why should you be rewarded for doing the right thing?
Excellent point. That's what, exactly where I was gonna go, right?
Right.
So he said, yeah, he gave the money back, which was doing the right thing. Why should he become a hero? He said, didn't I do the right thing, bailing him out,
Right.
paying off his debt and depleting my daughter's dowry to pay off his debt and to the loan sharks.
Right.
He said, what do I get out of that?
Right. Right.
Okay, so that's not an unfair point, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of interesting. So that's why the director says it's the ambiguity of the situation, you know, who's the hero, who's not, and is there such a thing? So some of the critics, there was several really good reviews. The Times gave it a critic's pick. IndieWire review said Farhadi's latest moral dilemma is his best film since The Separation. A hero is one of his best of how each of its parts help complicate the design to completion. And it takes all of them to reach another of his signature endings, poignant and understated as ever, yet this time ruefully well aware of how the search for moral purity can be futile once it falls under the public eye. If only a personal sense of honor were worth the cost of keeping it. If only there had been enough money in that bag to make him want to do the wrong thing. And that was
I can't understand how the mother has nothing to do with the stuttering child.
That's true.
I don't get
That's
that.
maybe why the kid stuttered.
well,
Yeah.
I was wondering about that, and I was thinking that perhaps the kid was there because he was home from prison. They didn't really address it, but I was thinking that may be the only reason he was there is because
Oh, really?
his father's home from prison, so let him be with his father for now.
So
But
the-
they really didn't
The aunt is not
cover it.
looking after him.
I think they did say something.
If they did, I saw it twice. I missed it. I'm
Oh,
not really
alright.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, when someone called from the school to say that he got in a fight, he said, the main character said, why did they call his mother? I did catch that.
Right.
I think you're right.
Right, that's true.
See if you
Yeah,
heard that.
yeah.
Ed,
Yes, Yeah.
in the beginning, he went to the money, to the people to try and sell the money, the
correct.
coin, to turn them in. And they weren't going to get as much money for them as they originally said they would get for them. And that's when he decided to give it back to the woman.
Right.
So,
But
I mean,
but realistically, it wasn't going to be enough to pay the whole debt anyway. It was just going to be a higher percentage. It wasn't going to, I mean, the price of gold doesn't vary that much.
but his intention was to do it.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah. Again, he goes back and forth by what people say. And she said, maybe you should just give it back. His girlfriend at some point, you know, just kind of frustrated, said, maybe you should just give it back. And that's what he said, okay, I'm going to give it back.
The
So-
question is, how many of us would hand it
Yeah.
in, or how many of us
Right.
would keep it?
Let's
Right.
have a vote here.
Yeah?
Elizabeth would. Hands up.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth,
what would
yes,
you
go
do,
ahead.
hand it in?
I would keep it.
What would you do, Elizabeth?
Do you think this is worthy, this movie is worthy of winning?
It's not even nominated.
No.
One
It's not
sec.
on the list.
No,
Elizabeth.
It didn't make the finals.
Wait, isn't it foreign film?
It doesn't look like it's worthy.
It's Iran's entry, but it didn't make the
list.
final five. Yeah.
What made the final?
I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember the name.
Okay.
Coda and,
The quota's not foreign.
That's not a foreign film.
no, it's not a foreign.
That's what
film.
she's
Oh,
asked about
wants a
foreign films, yeah.
I don't-
So I want to read a little bit from the New York Times. They open the review with a quote, "The last temptation is the greatest treason, to do the right deed for the wrong reason." T.S. Eliot. Yeah. The last temptation is the greatest treason, to do the right deed for the wrong reason. It's from Murder in the Cathedral. And it's Eliot's observation about morality, and it turns the movie, it kind of seems to inspire the movie into a squall of questions about ethics and motives. Nothing in this, okay. At the center of the movie is what looks like an unambiguous act of decency. A man, the title character, a sign painter named Rahim, arranges for the return of 17 gold coins to the rightful owner. What could be wrong with that? What could go wrong as a consequence? Quite a lot as it happens. Nothing in this stressful, intricately plotted fable of modern life is as simple as we or the characters might wish. Bahram, a print shop owner, okay, he's the brother-in-law of Rahim's former wife, which we talked about because she's never seen in the movie. The more time you spend with Rahim, the more you wonder If the skeptics, who at first seem bureaucratic, cold-hearted, or vindictive, might have a point? Do his occasional outbursts bespeak a violent temperament? Does his hangdog demeanor cover up an essential dishonesty? Or is he just, as he claims to be, a good guy who can't seem to catch a break? In a sense, these questions, the question of whose side you should be on, are misdirected. Farhadi, again, the director, is less interested in the essence of who people are than in the causes and results of what they do. He makes films with the discipline and insight of a first-rate novelist. A hero is as anxious and swift as a thriller, with the density and observational acuity of a 19th century three-decker.
Yes.
Yes.
I did find money once, and I went out of my way to return it, literally, and I would never return money again.
What happened?
What happened? Nothing, not even a thank you. So I'll tell you the truth, I don't think I would ever do that again.
Wow, not even a thank you when Rebecca found
I'm
money.
gonna be
and returned
honest,
it.
I don't think I think I would have kept the.
Because, I mean, it
If I
wasn't
find a
worth it.
nickel, I lost some money.
No, it wasn't worth it, and then, you know, if it's not I mean, it depends. Where was the money? Why did that Schmendrick leave like all this money? Like, why would,
Right,
it's like, oh, I left a Stradivarius in a taxi. Who does that?
right, yeah.
I
How
mean,
can you
come on.
forget?
Isn't
Well,
it
the
great?
strap broke, so it fell off.
Who gets out of a taxi with that, you know?
Right.
With the strap from the pickleball. paddle.
I love that in New York, right?
All right.
Could
one
you
more.
summarize what Rebecca said?
She's saying she had a bad experience returning money that she
would
found,
never
and she
return
wouldn't
money.
do it again because the person didn't even thank her.
So never leave your pocketbook at her house.
Exactly.
It's gone.
Exactly.
All right, we have a little time. A quick quote from RogerEbert.com, but it's by Glenn Kenny, who also writes reviews for the New York Times. The viewer can't be quite sure if what happens is spurred by a genuine crisis of conscience or downheartedness over the overwhelming evidence that the plan isn't going to work anyway. But Rahim decides to return the handbag rather than cash in its contents. So begins a no good deed goes unpunished saga whose novelty derives from the viewer's uncertainty as to how good the deed was in the first place. Now, there was a mixed review in the New Yorker where they called the movie both moral fable and mousetrap. Under Iranian law, Rahim can be freed from when he pays off the debt or if Bahram agrees to forgive it. They initially try to cash in the coins, but Rahim has second thoughts. He decides to do the right thing, puts up the signs. His increasing desperate attempts to buy his freedom complicate things further, all exacerbated by his newfound fame and a spotlight that insists on interpreting his actions as either totally pure or totally base. Played by the likable Jadidi with a cautious smile and hangdog uncertainty, Rahim is a man thoroughly out of step with the world, increasingly at the mercy of the fragility of public opinion, which can adore you after a TV appearance, then turn on you with one short video uploaded to the internet. Everyone around him is consumed by technology, from smartphones to surveillance cameras to TV shows. Rahim doesn't even have a cell phone, as they're not allowed in prison. We also learned the reason for his debt was the failure of his sign painting business, which collapsed when computers rendered his services irrelevant. And nearly every major decision he makes, be it honest or duplicitous, is suggested by someone else. And it, among other things, whether his actions were driven by decency or opportunism is the key question.
This is a window into Iran, a social, a look at what goes on day to day. It's a much freer country than we imagine.
Well, again,
Yeah, it's
the film got out, so we don't know if it's accurate or not.
No.
It's almost
Right.
like it's
It
a little
was-
propaganda.
Right, it was officially blessed by the government.
Right, because
Yes.
it did eliminate the police presence
Right.
and the. posters
And that's
of
why he
the
got some criticism, and
Ayatollah.
that's when he said,
Yeah.
take the whatever, the award away, yeah.
Yeah.
People do go to work every day in Iran and
Sure.
have families.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's just if you rob from somebody, they cut your hand off. I mean, that's, I mean, there's a different kind of law.
But when he
Both
first
sides.
saw
Is
his
it Sharia law
girlfriend.
there? Is it Sharia law? Is it a regular,
No.
what kind of law? The Iranians are the more European, right? Persian people. But is it a,
Shah.
Yeah, it was,
Sharia
yes.
Ed, don't forget Argo.
Yeah.
Remember the movie Argo?
Argo, yes, yes.
So two different societies in these two different films.
You
That's
know,
right.
when his girlfriend first appeared and he said something, She's wearing a burqa. She looks, and she was only wearing it to conceal the bag. And that
Right.
was kind of saying, it's not really necessary to.
Right.
wear
That's
this.
right.
I'm just wearing it to conceal the bag.
That's right.
Whereas what we get.
Yeah, our
is
understanding
that
was they have to go out
they
wearing
have
that.
to, and that there are little burqa policemen
Right.
running
Yeah.
around.
Like I remember,
Yeah.
did you ever see Homeland, the TV show?
Yeah.
They had, everyone had to wear,
Except the young
any woman.
people also go out at night and they go into another area and change into jeans
And they
and
drink
t-shirts.
and they.
Right.
And they do the whole thing, so it's
Right.
the people versus the government are two different entities.
We don't know what the truth is. We don't know what the truth is.
And I think that's to
No,
show their face,
but
right?
they did say it was Sharia
All
law.
the women have
Yeah,
their
they
face
have to
shown.
have that.
Okay, real quick, just to wrap up, there was a negative review. There weren't many, but I found one from the Laramie Movie Scope. Robert wrote it. It's a tolerable movie, but the story utilizes too many arbitrary plot devices, which increase its moral ambiguity and inhumanity while decreasing its appeal, believability, and relevance. I don't know. I kind of disagree with him. I don't know what you guys feel about it, but I thought the movie was credible. Yeah, a little contrived with a couple of the situations he got into, but once he got into them, what happened seemed like it could happen.
I think the word tolerable
Yeah.
was a very good
I think
description.
so,
It
too.
was tolerable.
Okay.
It wasn't compelling.
No.
It wasn't riveting. It was tolerable.
Okay, I thought it was pretty engaging. I mean, I wasn't bored by it at all.
I just wanted him to get back to prison.
Yeah. Ruth, are you waving?
It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Just do
Ruth?
it.
Oh, okay, no, okay. So a couple of trivia notes. At the Cannes Film Festival, Farhadi and the members of his film crew who were present received a 5-minute standing ovation after the screening.
Why would that be?
He made it out alive.
They loved it.
Still alive. Because he
Yeah.
made it.
He made it.
He got it done and he was there.
You know,
It was officially a French and Iranian production. I don't know what part the French played in it, but that's how it helped get financed.
What is Mike? Just give it to us.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right.
We
right.
have for the next.
Yeah, we want to know who's here.
Right.
Ed, I just want to tell you something, Ed.
Yep.
I lost a wallet once and I had a lot of money in it. And I got a call that night from a really poor neighborhood in Philadelphia. And the guy said to me, are you so-and-so? I found your wallet. So I went to that guy and I gave him a reward and I was so grateful. You know, so that really does happen.
Wow.
It happened to Ben a couple of
Yeah,
times.
it
in the taxi.
happens.
Left it fell
Yeah.
out in the taxi many times.
Makes you
And
feel
they
good
brought
about
it
human
back.
beings.
The
It
taxi-
happened many times.
Yeah, a
You
few
really gotta
times.
pay attention to your things, Ben.
A few times.
You know what you said about
It's
finding
really-
money now.
Now you know who took it, Ben.
It happened a few times. And they actually
It's all gone.
came.
Yeah, and you give them,
And they brought it
and it
back.
restores your whole
It
sense
does,
of
it does.
confidence in human
Faith in
nature.
them.
Someone does.
Well, thank you. Anyone have any other final thoughts or? Okay, I'll stop it, but hope to see everybody next month on the 24th for Battle of Algiers on HBO Max. Thank you for participating.
Is there any other way
Stop
to
them
do it?
short.
Never bring him back to your.